بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وسبحان الله الذي أنعم علينا بنعمة الإسلام والله أكبر. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ أن هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة يا علي يا عظيم إنك أنت العلي المتعال ملك السماوات والأرض تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتعز من تشاء بغير حساب. ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك المصير إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ونصلي ونسلم ونبارك على المصطفى الأمين النبي الخاتم محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة والتسليم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اتبعوا بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. The burden, the trust, the covenant, the obligation, the honor of carrying a divine message is truly monumental. If you are any human being in any affair that has to do with your existence, and you are entrusted to carry any type of responsibility, whether it is to your job, to your family, even a responsibility towards yourself, that's a serious matter. The very idea of a responsibility is a very serious matter. None of us exist simply within the boundaries of the time and space that we occupy. Rather, all of us come to this world and immediately impact everything around us in perceptible and predictable ways, but also in unperceptible and unpredictable ways. We just don't reflect upon all the ways that any of us, the minute that we are given the gift of this existence, the reality of this existence, whether you understand it as a gift or not, immediately you occupy space and you consume time, and the reality of responsibility is created. If you are a reflective and moral human being, you immediately start thinking about the ways that your existence impacts upon others and yes, impacts upon you yourself as an objective reality engaged by a subjective consciousness. And if you are a moral human being, the idea of the balance, al-mizan, comes to your mind immediately. I cannot occupy space and time. I cannot consume to exist. I cannot deal with others. I cannot eventually die and leave this world without having left an impact. And because of that impact, I've incurred responsibilities. Now, imagine how much more so when the responsibility that you incur comes from the maker of the universe and existence. When you carry that covenant, and at the other end of the covenant is nothing short of God, when you carry this covenant, and at the other end of that covenant is nothing short of God, the elements of logic, the basic processes of analysis tell you that you either honor this covenant or you degrade this covenant, you breach this covenant, you violate this covenant. And because in contract logic, your contractor, your contracting party is with God, God's self, then you have a partnership. And this partnership, a contractual partnership, is with nothing short of the Lord of the heavens and the earth. Now, think about all the implications of this. I come to existence, I come to the realization, and that is what faith is, that's what Iman is, that I have a covenant and a contractual relationship, and at the other end of that contractual relationship is nothing short of God. If I am true to this partnership, I cannot engage in any conduct that would violate what my partner wants in this relationship. In legal terms, there's no derogation from your responsibility. Moreover, subsidiaries are not allowed. You can't pull someone in to stand for you. You can't somehow elude your responsibilities by saying, well, you know, in this partnership between me and the Lord, this covenant that Allah has imposed, I can shirk away my responsibilities because I replace myself with someone else into this contract with the Lord. So you can't say, well, instead of me, my mother will answer for my obligations under the contract, or my father will answer for my obligations under the contract, or even my sheikh, or my ruler, or my leader. All contracts are built on good faith. All contracts are built on good faith. This is like the element of iman in a contract. If you don't have good faith, no amount of writing will prevent a breach of the contract. This is a critical point, because we often forget this in our faith. If you don't have good faith, no amount of text, of writing, will prevent a breach of the contract. No amount of text will prevent a human being who has a contract with the divine, and in fact any contract with anyone, if they don't have that element of good faith. Now, what is good faith here? It is khuluq. It is ethics. It is the basic ground rules for an authentic survival of your covenantal relationship with Allah. So, when Allah, for instance, tells us, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى, وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعِدْوَانِ. So here, the terms of the contract. وَتَعَاوَنُوا, cooperate with one another, work together. Work together on what? Al-birr. Now, al-birr is a wonderfully meaningful word. Al-birr is the essence of justice, but also kindness. There is no birr if you have a right and I don't give you your right, or deny you your right, then birr doesn't exist. That is why we say birr al-walidain. Birr al-walidain meaning being kind and gracious to your parents. Why do we call it birr? Because you are not just giving them their due, but you do so with generosity. So if you only give the bare minimum to satisfy rights, that's not birr. And birr is a remarkable expression. If I cheat you and I take away what is owed to you, there is no birr. If you give me a loan and I abscond and run away and deny that I owe you anything, there's no birr. If I am driving and I hit your car and I damage it, and then I go and just keep driving and I hide and don't tell you that I hit your car, there is no birr. Al-birr is one of these quintessential good faith words. Bir gives you a license, for everything that is good and beautiful. So Allah tells us, work together on bir and taqwa, and the sincerity of belief. Everything we do in society must be conducive to honesty in good faith, honesty in conviction. So if I create a society of hypocrisy, a society where people, through either educational institutions or political institutions or even economic institutions, where people learn to lie and to hide and to cheat and to be hypocrites, I have not created the society of taqwa. Society of taqwa is not the superficial performance of religious obligations, as many people think. Taqwa is what is in the heart and affirmed by your actions. So when Allah tells us, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ, and don't work together on perpetuating wrongfulness and aggression. If there is a good faith element in my covenantal relationship, in my contractual relationship, I know my partner in this relationship wants me to work together on bir and taqwa and not work together on what is wrong and what is aggression. If there is good faith, then immediately the question becomes, well, we must live a diligent existence that searches out for what is wrong, what is ithm. Sometimes ithm is clear. Don't drink alcohol. Don't steal. Don't kill. We know that all this is ithm. But a lot of times ithm is sinister and subtle. Like when Allah says, keep your promises. Don't lie. Don't cheat. Think of human ingenuity and all the myriad and different ways that the human mind can justify lying and cheating and can justify a deceptive path. Even more so is aggression, al-adwan. When Allah tells us, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ, Allah commands you to seek out and establish justice and goodness. Now, again, if there is no good faith, words don't matter. If you don't have on the other side of the contract a person who is willing to take in the terms of the contract of al-birr and al-taqwa and al-adl and ihsan, then the entire relationship doesn't work. This is why I keep emphasizing again and again an ethical approach, because without an ethical approach, you don't learn the art of good faith dealing. If you don't start approach Islam from the foundations, as a morally and ethically vigilant religion, no amount of writing will create your good faith. So those people who say, I approach Islam with a blank page, and I will read the text, and the text will tell me what to do. This is like saying, I don't know what my contractual relationship is about, but I'm going to read the contract and just implement the cold letter of the contract. You fail. Islam, its explosive thrust, not from the time of Muhammad ﷺ, from the time of Ibrahim. Read the seerah of Ibrahim and all the prophets, and even before, even the seerah of Noah and the seerah of Salih, the Arab prophet, or Shu'aib, who predate Ibrahim. It is a consistent, ethically vigilant message. The message is the liberation of the human being, because if Allah is owed ubudiyyah, no one else is owed ubudiyyah. This is why the Prophet ﷺ taught us that human beings are equal, black and white, Arab and Persian, like the teeth of a comb. This is why Umar ibn al-Khattab, with his innate sense of good faith, said, متى استعبدتم الناس وقد خلقتهم أمهاتهم وقد ولدتهم أمهاتهم أحرارا. Who gives you the right to enslave people? And they were born free. This innate. This is why the people who flocked to the message of the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the message of the Prophet Ismail, and the message of the Prophet Ishaq alayhi salam, and the message of the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, and the message of the Prophet Isa alayhi salam, and the message of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, the people that flocked, the first people to flock to these messages, were often the most moral and the most powerless, because they saw in these messages a message of liberation. What is consistent is the message of monotheism that directs the human being towards justice as the sustainer of the scales of the universe. Has always been a revolutionary message that transforms societies. Read the history of the Israelites after having embraced the message of Moses. The history of the followers of Jesus. If we put the Trinity aside, but the way that religion became a revolutionary force against an imperial elite class that lasted for centuries. And of course, the message of Islam. This is why it is very dangerous to approach our faith like lawyers, the very logic of jurisprudence is that you search the text for through a technical methodology of exploration and investigation. But that methodology doesn't always include a moral vision. And that's very dangerous. And in my view, that's a bad lawyer as well as a bad Muslim. Now, I underscore this for numerous reasons. I have given many examples in the past of why you absolutely need to raise your ethical sense and awareness before even dealing with the text. Because if the text tells you, work together for birr and for justice and for goodness, that's all the text can do. But if in your heart you have no notion about what justice is and what ihsan is, what goodness could look like, or what justice could look like, tell me, how can the contractual relationship work? How can that covenant work? If you, inside yourself, you are a defeated human being who no longer believes in justice, then de facto, as a matter of reality, that contractual relationship with the divine has already failed. Let me even take you a bit closer. In early Islam, upon the death of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a huge political controversy. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh insisted on the zakah to be collected by the state and dispersed by the state. There was a rebellion against them in the forms of the wars of Ridda. And then we have so after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, there is political turmoil, and a great deal of that turmoil persists, especially during the Uthman period radiallahu anh, and after Uthman is assassinated, and then the Ali period, and then after Ali is assassinated, and then the rebellion of Imam al-Hussein radiallahu anhu, the grandson of the Prophet, against the Umayyads, and so on. Political turmoil. Within this political turmoil emerged a group of Muslims known as the Murji'ah. The Murji'ah basically believed that since there is so much civil discord, so much controversy, the best thing to do is take care of number one, i.e., it's better not to judge, not to search for what is just and unjust, what is beautiful or what is ugly, what is right or what is wrong. All you can do is go do your salah at home or in the masjid, if the masjid is close to your home. And other than that, don't get involved with anything. Aqidat al-Irja, the Murji'ah, basically said the search for justice, ihsan, right, wrong, It's too hard. It's too difficult. So we will just go pray in our home and let Allah judge in the end. When they all get to Allah in the hereafter, Allah will tell us what's right and what's wrong, but in the here now, we're oblivious. In my last khutbah, I talked about the trash bin of history. The Murji'ah, what you can, there are a few things in the Islamic tradition where you can truly say there's near absolute consensus. Everyone understood the danger of the Murji'ah because they emptied the Islamic faith of any, under the guise of avoiding political conflicts, they emptied the Islamic faith of any moral content. Under the guise of avoiding politics, they also made religion a very personal affair in which society can be extremely unjust, extremely poor, extremely corrupt. That doesn't affect us. We're not involved with any of that. Very much like in our modern age. In Egypt, you see people, because of the corrupt Sisi government, you see videos of women and children and men eating out of the garbage piles in the streets, eating from the garbage. Al-Burhani, the head of the Salafi group, one of the Salafi groups, one of the major Salafi groups in Egypt, says, we can't judge Sisi, we can't judge corruption, we can't judge it. And not only Burhani, but even the Azhar, and even Dar al-Ifta. The point, though, is that for centuries, what did Muslim theologians and jurists do? For centuries, is challenge the ideas of the Murji'ah and deconstruct the Murji'ah and insist that at a minimum, you must have an understanding of what is just and unjust in your heart, even if you can't do anything about it politically. At a minimum, God demands that you recognize injustice for what it is, and wrongfulness for what it is, and righteousness for what it is. And this way you can have good faith, and Islam can stand for something in the world, instead of just personal salvation, which, by the way, belongs to Allah anyway. And Allah is going to decide who's saved and who's not saved. But that's not the issue. The issue is when Allah tells us work together to establish justice and taqwa and birr. We can't turn this into, well, I'm going to work, but I'm going to work alone. And not if justice me, I'm just going to focus on justice inside of me, and that's it. Which is meaningless, because you impact upon your space and time. No human being exists in isolation. The minute you come into existence, you are a part of the equation of creation. And you have a role to play in the mizan. So Muslim scholars over centuries deconstruct the Murji'ah, so much so that we really thought, or maybe I really thought, that the Murji'ah was done with and dead. You grow up, you study the Ash'aris, you study the Maturidis, you study the Mu'tazila, You even study the theology and jurisprudence of the Ibadis, who used to be the Khawarij. You study the law and theologies of the Ja'faris, of the Zaydis. But you say, well, the Murji'ah, we just know about them from a few texts here and there, but they're dead. They're gone. Lo and behold, in our modern age, you have the Salafi Madkhalis, you have the people I talked about last Khutbah, you have even Azhar and their support of unjust governments. And it's not that they are just supporting unjust governments. They're telling you, who are you to judge? They're telling you, if you say to an unjust ruler, you are unjust, you have committed a sin, and you are a terrorist because you are practicing political Islam. So the Prophet ﷺ tells us the biggest jihad, al-jihad al-akbar, the biggest jihad is to stand before an unjust ruler and say, you are unjust. But the Murji'ah of today, the Jamis and the Madkhalis and the weird Salafi / Sufis, like the people I talked about last Khutbah, and Dar al-Iftah in Egypt, and Al-Azhar in Egypt, and Dar al-Iftah from the United Arab Emirates, and they tell us, don't judge, because it's not your place to judge. So for instance, here is a very good example. There was a student in Egypt, his name is Muhammad Gharib. This poor kid was seen, security forces in Egypt, people saw the security forces in Egypt, arrest him, take him, load him in his cars. His family goes to the authorities in Egypt. The authorities in Egypt say, we don't know anything about him, we didn't take him. His family looks for him everywhere, they go everywhere. They get leaks from inside that he's being held in one of the worst prisons in Egypt. Okay, this goes on for 6 months. Suddenly, this just a few days ago, the Egyptian government announces it has killed 9 terrorists in an anti-terrorist operation. Among them is the student Muhammad Gharib. Now, he was in government custody this entire time. So how is that? Well, I'll tell you how is that. Because the government abducts numerous people, keeps them in prison in secret, and then when they want to claim a make-believe victory over terrorism, whenever there is political unrest, they bring out a bunch of them and execute them. Just shoot them point blank. Among them is this poor kid, Muhammad Gharib. The only thing he did is that he went out in a demonstration at the time of Rabah. Now, you come to present facts like these, which are human rights issues, and human rights organizations documented and said that Muhammad Gharib was at first abducted and then executed by the Egyptian government. You have the Murji'ah of today from Dar al-Iftah say, excuse me, we don't criticize the government. We don't say anything about injustice. You go to Azhar, well, you know, bad things happen. We don't judge. You go to the Madkhalis from the Jumu'at Islamiyya in Egypt, well, no, we support the ruler, just or unjust. That's Allah's sultan. And you can't oppose Allah's sultan. Now, even you go to some Sufis and some converts in the West, and they more or less tell you the same thing. So you tell me, if a religion doesn't stand for basic human justice and basic human rights, then what is the point of that religion? How are you going to get your children to follow a religion that stands for nothing? Here, sweetheart, honey, come, I want to teach you about your Islam. Okay, Baba, okay, Mama. What is your Islam? Well, we do Salah. Okay, why? We give thanks to Allah. Okay, that's wonderful. So, how about all the stuff I'm experiencing? Well, just do your Salah. How about all the stuff in the world around me? Well, just do your Salah. Well, how about unfairness and injustice and oppression and racism and classism and persecution and despotism? Just do your Salah. You want to tell me, unless your kid is stupid, meaning not very intelligent, so your kid is not curious, and your kid doesn't have any ethical or moral inquiries, your kid will say, what is this? What is this? I mean, I stand for what? This is why the New Age Murji'ah is so dangerous. This is why I keep harping on it. It is the most dangerous thing, more dangerous than the Islamophobes, because it comes from us. We eat away at the very moral integrity of our tradition. No. When Allah tells me work together to establish justice and goodness, the good faith requirement for discharging any contract or covenant tells me I must take it seriously. Allah didn't say establish justice for yourself. Allah said work together to establish justice. So my good faith commitment makes me say, let's look at the elements that allow us to establish a just society. And that is in no instruction book in the Quran and Sunnah. That is a matter of scientific and rational exploration and inquiry. Because all human beings share in the social sciences that can investigate and establish justice. It's something that all human beings can share. The Murji'ah of today, which unfortunately, the Murji'ah of today are very handsomely funded and supported, are the most lethal threat Islam is confronting in the modern age. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم وصلى الله استغفر لكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وسبحان الله العلي العظيم والله أكبر الله أكبر ونصلي ونسلم ونبارك على محمد النبي المصطفى الأمين وخاتم النبيين. اللهم شفعه فينا يا رب. this idea of the trash bin of history, in the same tradition that you will find, thanks through the influence of the old Murji'ah, not the new Murji'ah, thanks to the influence of the old Murji'ah, you will find a lot of hadith attributed to the Prophet ﷺ that can only be described as pro-despotism and pro-apathy and pro-disempowerment. But you will also find in our tradition moral movements and ethical movements that resisted the immoral tradition. So for instance, I don't remember who is it that said, من دعا لسلطان جائر فقد أحب أن يعصى الله في الأرض. Whoever accepts upon himself or herself to do dua for an unjust sultan, then it is as if this person has accepted, indeed likes the fact that Allah is dishonored and disrespected on this earth. Think about, I think it is this maqula from Imam al-Thawri, but I'm not entirely sure. But think about the very notion itself. If you accept upon yourself that you do dua, and doing dua is like when someone says, may Allah preserve our king and give him aid and support, and you say Ameen, then you've done that dua. And it's as if you indeed like the fact and support the fact that Allah is dishonored on this earth. So when, for instance, one of the Muslim leaders, with Hamza Yusuf, who said that Trump is just doing God's work on earth and we should just pray for him for success. Trump is an unjust ruler because of what he's done in the Muslim ban, because of his policies towards Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Muslim world, because of the bombing of Yemen and the bombing of Libya, because of his support of dictators everywhere, including in Egypt and so on and so forth, because of his policy towards immigrants and breaking up families and detaining children. He is unjust. So when you pray or you even deal with someone like Trump, it's as if you accept that Allah's purposes, because Allah's purposes can never be consistent with injustice and ugliness. Impossible. I'm going to close with a very beautiful passage that has always touched me personally, by a well-known Hanbali scholar called Ibn Rajab. I think I noted it. So Ibn Rajab, Ibn Rajab is quoted in an earlier jurist called Ibn al-Mubarak. Ibn al-Mubarak, as cited by Ibn Rajab, says He's talking about scholars and their relationship with power. And I'm going to very quickly read it in Arabic and then translate it. وقال ابن المبارك ليس الآمر الناهي من اعتزلهم وسبب هذا ما يخشى من فتنة الدخول عليهم فإن النفس قد تخيل للإنسان إذا كان بعيدا عنهم أنه يأمرهم وينهاهم ويغلظ عليهم فإذا شاهدهم قريبا مالت النفس إليهم لأن محبة الشرف كامنة في النفس له ولذلك يداهنهم ويلاطفهم وربما مال إليهم وأحبهم ولا سيما إن لاطفوه وأكرموه وقبل ذلك منهم. So what he's saying is that the problem with scholars and power is that often scholars start out telling themselves, I'm going to work with unjust rulers because I am going to confront them and reform them. You start out telling yourself, I'm going to do a good job. I am just getting close to them so I can give them sound, powerful advice. I'm going to get them to change their ways. But then you're sucked in. You get close. And when you get close, Ibn al-Mubarak, as quoted by Ibn Rajab, tells us, it's very common. If you get close, they start flattering you, praising you, giving you gifts. And before you know it, you start modifying and taking down not just your criticisms, but even in your own heart and mind. You say, well, maybe they're not bad. Maybe this is not real injustice. Maybe, this guy Muhammad Gharib was after all involved in something sinister. Because now you have an invested interest. So you start making up excuses. So Ibn al-Mubarak tells you, if you really want good faith covenant with Allah, stay away. Don't put yourself in mawaqi' shubhat. Don't you put yourself in places where you are going to get sucked in and become part of the edifice and system of injustice. These are the scholars. This is part of the tradition that we should go back to, extract, develop, and be proud of. Parts like that we bring out and say, hey, this is what Islam stands for. That's where ethical judgment comes in. That's where moral vision comes in. That's where good faith in your contractual and covenantal relationship with Allah comes in. But it is part of the trash bin of history when you ignore all the beauty in our tradition and you go pick the ugliest part, the theology of the Murji'ah who were buried centuries ago, and bring it back to life. And Islam once again is struggling over the question of whether it stands for anything or not. One final point, because there are some comments about this. It especially hurts me when this is done by a convert. Because you converted to Islam. You went and learned Arabic. You went and traveled I don't know where to study. As a convert, I want to see the love you have for this faith, the dhikrullah akbar, that dhikr, that remembrance of Allah that brings you closer to justice and equity and beauty. And I want to see the way that your diverse and rich background and ethnicity can enrich this tradition. Instead, you went and did all of that to search for the darkest part of Islamic history and bring it with you and say, here is my Islam. That's sad. Just it breaks your heart. Because if Burhani is a medical doctor who was raised by Muslim parents, but raised on the principle of being a moral coward, and raised his uncle or father was arrested by the Egyptian security forces and tortured so severely, when he saw the way his father or uncle were tortured, something broke inside of him, and he became a professional hypocrite. Someone who professionally kisses up to authoritarian governments. So, I'd say, the experience, the torture experience destroyed them. So many from Muslim countries are like that. But what excuse do converts have? What excuse? Our tradition, people, is beautiful. But you need good faith in order to truthfully and sincerely discharge any contract. And you need the intellect, and you need rational judgment, and you need deep empathy for all of humanity, and a deep sense of care, so that about the mizan, the balance of the universe we exist in, and the principle that Islam stands for a foundational, constitutional norm, and that is justice. Justice for all. Allahumma afu anna. Waghfir lana. Allahumma hadina. اللهم انصر الإسلام يا رب انصر الإسلام واهدي المسلمين. Allah, forgive our sins, help us become more passionate and sincere and pious Muslims. Help us call for justice, understand it, comprehend it, call for it and establish. Help us be just towards others and just towards ourselves and just towards our family and just towards our society and just towards you, Ya Ali, Ya Azim, Ya Rabbal Alameen, wa aqim as-salam.